Welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a very brief look at various LED units for residential lighting between these A19 A21 bulbs and these retrofit kits for 5 to 6 inch recessed lighting. The reason why I'm looking at this is because I purchased some new lights, the ones at the end over here from Super Bright LEDs, and they're typically a little bit brighter than what I could find in the stores, and I wanted to see if that extra brightness makes any difference. Now this is going to be a very unscientific kind of thing. I'm not going to use any kind of light meter or power meters or anything like this. We're just going to do a quick run through. It is actually Christmas Eve. In fact, it's about an hour to Christmas itself, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but honestly I don't really have anything else going on, and I wanted to do this sooner than later because I have two of these items I actually have to get wrapped up. I mentioned in an earlier video where I did a mailbag, we did the unboxing, if you will, of these two end items from superbrightleds.com. And what I said was there was a couple of those that went for Christmas presents, and I've wrapped the majority of them, and there are two left that I left out for this review. So for the sake of brevity, what I'm going to do is actually set up a little test rig here, and we'll go through each light. I'll plug it into a lamp. I'll kill all the various lights in this room so we'll get a pitch black, and the only light we'll turn on is that individual light. And I'll put the specs for that light into the video and post editing. But briefly I'll run through what we have here. Now these two units are from FEIT Electric. This is from superbrightleds.com. We have a bulb from Sylvania, another FEIT Electric, another Super Bright LED. And we do actually have a coil lamp here. This is a compact fluorescent, and I just have this here just to show off the difference in the type of lighting. And this is from LUMAcoil. Now there are some differences here as far as what the equivalency is, what the color temperature is, and whatnot. So this isn't going to be a great comparison from one brand to another as far as same bulbs. So you're not going to be comparing a cool white to a cool white bulb and so on and so forth. So keep that in mind. Like I said, it's a very unscientific kind of thing. So without any further delay, let's get into this. So we'll just run through briefly and take a look at all these. Now all these retrofit kits are the same in that they have these quick disconnects, which some recessed lights use. The other ones have these screw-on type connectors. Now I can tell you from looking at these alone, you see this one here is filled in, and that's the case for both of the FEIT Electric ones. The one from Super Bright LED is not filled in, it's kind of hollow, and although this is used in a recessed lighting fixture and you shouldn't have access to it to worry about it, it does have exposed terminals in here which could prevent a problem in the proper fixture, I guess you could say. But you know, it's going to be in a recessed ceiling mount can, so it's not going to be an issue anyway. But I did think it was interesting that they didn't have a nicer filled in one like the other ones here did. Also thing to notice comparing these guys, the feet are a little bit different on these. Over here it's more of like a half hook. This is a much larger hook. The way these mount in a normal light, these squeeze together, and inside there's actually a little mount that these clip into, and then you release them, and then you should be able to push this up against the ceiling, and then this widens out, holds it in spot. There is also an alternative method of mounting, although I haven't experienced that yet in person, so offhand I don't really remember how that goes. But if you look in the description, I'll have full details of all these lights, and some of them I did find the data sheets, so I'll have that data sheet in there as well. Some of these, the lower wattage ones over here, have a plastic surround on it, whereas the middle one over here has the metal, and the Super Bright LED one also has metal. Now this one's the brightest out of all three of them. It's also the heaviest weight-wise out of all three, and that's to be expected, I guess. Out of all these, this one seems like it's the easiest to take apart. I can actually pop my spudger into the surrounding area on here and pop this off. I'm not going to do it this moment. Perhaps towards the end of the video, if I have enough time, I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. But there are some little indents here to retain that. The other ones over here, they actually are completely sealed. There's no way to get into that. unless you use brute force. If I show you the fronts of these, this one looks like it has a larger emitter on it. But I think I like the way this one looks off better. It just has like a more sleek look to it. I do like these a lot better than the standard bulbs that some people use, which are these guys here. You screw this in from replacing your original bulb, but then you still have that space all around that you get in a normal fixture. I'll insert a screenshot in here someplace of what one of those looks like in case you're unfamiliar. So anyways, we'll just put these down for this a second. Now, I believe most of these are used in damp locations, wet locations, like in bathrooms and stuff. It seems like this one over here has a separate little power supply unit on the top, whereas these over here, they're more integrated, especially this one over here where it's not included at all. It's just all inside the plastic. This one here does look like it also has an external module on top, but perhaps it's integrated. There are two different types of plastics. I'm not sure how they're attached. It is pretty hard to open these up. Any other thing I can point out, it looks like these brackets are screwed in from the other side, so I'm presuming that you can get this off. There might be a way to disassemble it. This one over here is riveted on. Also has a really large spring on the bottom over here. This one over here just has a smaller spring, but it is screw mounted. And then this one over here has the same spring. So there are some things comparatively that I like better construction wise than the others. Pricing, by the way, will also be in the segment of this where I put up the screenshots in case you're wondering on that. And I'll just also point out color temperatures on these. This one over here is the soft white version at 2700K. This one is daylight at 5000K, and this one's 4000K, which they're calling natural white. And these all have a pretty high CRE, which is the color rendering index. You want that to be as close to 100 as possible, and that's basically how the light reflects off a color and how it renders that color, what you perceive that color as. And I'm assuming that 100% is as closest to sunlight as possible, natural light. I mentioned in the mailbag video, and I'll mention again in case you guys haven't seen that one yet, the purpose of purchasing really high wattage, high CRE, high lumen LEDs for my purpose is I'm putting these in my mom's kitchen, specifically these guys here, and I want something that's mega bright. She has some vision problems, and in that kitchen we have neodymium gas filled bulbs in this style, just regular incandescent bulbs, and they're considered like a full spectrum bulb. They put out really nice bright white light. And they actually use that kind of a bulb in a lot of those mood lights that you see sold in the winter time. So it's supposed to emulate sunlight, so you don't get the the winter depression thing going on. And we like those bulbs. They do provide a nice quality color of light, and not only that, but they're bright wattage wise. They're like 150 watt bulbs. But the thing is as you get closer and closer to this technology getting better and better, they're just starting to phase those kind of lights out, and harder to get. They're expensive. They have a very short lifetime. And what happens is we end up replacing them with standard bulbs when you find them as bright as you can, and they're just not the same. So I figured doing this would actually help mitigate that problem, especially with the long lifespan. They say this has a 50,000 hour lifetime, which is about 45 years of normal use. So hopefully I can put them in. That'll be the last time we have to do anything like that. They do actually have one LED light up in their ceiling right now, but because it's so small, it recesses so high up, it doesn't actually disperse a lot of the light. Other things I could talk about: beam angle. This has a 100-degree beam angle, where the super bright LED one has a 110-degree angle. So that's definitely a little bit of a difference. I'm not sure if that conveys too much just by looking at them, but that's one thing I noticed. The better the angle, the better light coverage in the room. I particularly like the natural white look better myself. The other two lights over here actually came from a construction site that I'm working on. These were extras. The daylight one actually was a pack of 10, and we installed 8 of those into fixtures currently for lighting and just general lighting for now. And then when we get to sheetrock, they're going to get popped back out again, so we can put the sheetrock up against the ceiling, and then they'll get obviously put back into place. But they're actually really nice. They provide quite a bit of light. At some point there'll be a picture of that area in this video. There's also some of these regular style bulbs being used in that same area too. So those are some leftovers from there. The other one that's over here, the soft white version, was already up at the site. The owner has 2 houses up there and he's using them in the house he's currently living in. And we tried them down there, but after we went and bought the new pack, we just went ahead and replaced them all with the same color temperature, because there definitely was a difference. And you'll definitely see that at the end of this when I go ahead and do all the comparison. Talking about these other ones up here, since I've segued into these are A19 bulbs. This is an A21, hence the size difference. Now this one actually has a 110 watt equivalency, whereas the other ones here are a little bit lower watt, like a 60 watt and a 40 watt. The Sylvania here being the 40 watt. And the other one here being the 60. So therefore this is using a 5.5 watt bulb. This one's using a 9.5 watt one. I didn't talk about wattages over here. This one's using a 20 watt. This one over here is using a 13.3 watt. I couldn't find the one on this one though, unfortunately, so I have no idea. Going back up to these guys, the super bright LEDs, a 4000K color temperature, which matches these guys here. I purposely did that for a reason. The other one over here, the FEIT electric, is a 2700, and as well as the other one. I'm sorry, actually this is a 5000, and this coil is also a warm white 2700K. The thing about the coil, since I've started talking about that, this has to warm up, and they actually measure as having an initial lumen of 1600 lumens. So this is actually the highest thing out of everything here, but they say it's an initial lumen level, which means as this thing gets older, it's going to degrade in luminosity, where these other ones don't have that problem. I believe LEDs are, you know, pretty good with that. The other thing that these coils have a problem is they take a little while to warm up, where these LEDs are instant brightness right off the get-go. These other bulbs up the top, since we're talking about them too, they all have a pretty low color rendering index, you know, anywhere from 80 to 83, the super bright LED being the higher. By the way, all these markings and designations and stuff, I know they're all numbers and we're comparing numbers to numbers, but from experience, just from life, it seems like a lot of manufacturers don't really give you the dead honest truth about what their products are putting out. Some do, some don't. I can't say that they all don't, but I can say certain things. For example, on the super bright LED one over here, they mention a CRI of 90. However, when you go on their website, they mention being up to 93. So maybe this one's being a little bit more conservative. The other one's saying, you know, at maximum it's up to 93, and you know, reality you probably get like 92 or 91. So to be safe, they tell you it's 90. I can't say. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have the professional metering here to be able to say that. Same thing with the lumen output. Same thing with all that stuff. I mentioned in the mailbag video cheap LEDs, and I showed that I had a light bar that we powered on the bench here, and I said that my desk power supply should not be able to power it. However, it did, and that means that it's a little bit of a lie. This thing puts out 12 volts at 10 amps, and we were powering lights that were supposed to require much higher than that, and it powered it without any issue. So that just goes to show me that sometimes those ratings aren't exactly what they say they are. So, you know, your mileage may vary with this kind of a test we're going to do here. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to the test array. So what I did was I just took a lamp and took the shade off and everything, and just have it set up over here with, you know, just the bare bulb out in the air. And I'm in a 10 by 10 room that's not quite 8 foot tall. And I'm going to put this in the center of the room, right under where I have a ceiling lamp, which is just left to the camera over here. And I'm going to go ahead and kill all the lights in the room over here, and we'll start with these guys over here. We'll go in order from the Sylvania to the FEIT to the super bright LED, and we'll go ahead and just turn it on, and I'll show you what the work area here looks like lit with only that light in the room. Elsewise, it'd be completely pitch black in here. And I'll just take a simple still picture of that lighting situation with each one of those bulbs, and either I'll have it on the screen or have it following afterwards the information for that bulb. And then when we get done with them, we'll do the same thing with these guys here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to shine the light outward towards the desk, And then if I can manage to do it, I'll take another bunch of pictures with this light right about the level of my ceiling if I can. I do have a light hanging over this desk, so that would obscure a lot of it. So what I'm going to try to do is just hold it about the level of that light. And speaking of that, I will go ahead and just show what we are actually lighting this room with. Everything here is LED. There's a 10-watt light in here, which you can see there. There's strip lighting in all of these little cubbies. The same strip lighting is also inside of this little light box that I made. We have your standard Christmas LED lighting around the power supply here. There's LEDs in the Christmas tree, my little star. Even the power supply here has its own stuff. Pitching upward, we can see that there's actually an LED power strip with the same stripping. And this is a little custom unit that I made. There's also a fan unit in the room, which I'll just briefly show. It's kind of dirty, honestly. I don't want to focus on it too long, but that does have those filament style LED bulbs in there, warm white. And then there's a very bright light on this camera, which is also, of course, LED. And I can actually show you guys that real quick. So let's go ahead and kill these lights in order of camera light, room light, 10-watt light, overhead light, and hidden kill switch over here, and the power supply. That does take a minute to die off because it's bleeding off the giant capacitors in there. And here we are in our completely dark room. Let's start with the smaller bulbs. I should mention before I go too much further, I'll be taking the camera out of automatic mode and putting it into manual mode, so it does not change any of the color temperatures or anything like that automatically. Just to give you an example of what happens if you do not do that. This is the Sylvania bulb in a warm white. And you can see how the color kind of has to adjust for a moment on the camera, but it does not do that in person. So I'm going to go ahead and compensate for that, and we'll go ahead and take proper screenshots of all those different bulbs. I decided to put a couple empty Christmas boxes and a stack of yellow bins, as well as a couple different post-it notes on the table so we can get a comparison. Also, now that the camera's locked in the manual white balance mode, I decided to turn my camera light back on. This is set to 5600K, 100% brightness right now, and this is the only light in the room, so we can get an idea of color temperature wise. Briefly, I'll mention this light is adjustable, so I can go from 5600 all the way down to 3300K, so you can see what the difference between cool and warm is. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these bulbs. One thing I found interesting was that the super bright LED retrofit light actually takes a little while to shut down. So I show you what that looks like. It's going to swamp the camera out. I'm aiming it directly at it. So if I turn it on and then shut it off, watch what happens here. Now the reason why you saw it kind of go from darkness up to brightness back to darkness is, even though white balance is locked in, it seems like the camera is still adjusting some of the brightness because it's being flooded out by having light shine directly into it. So what was happening was it was compensating for that. It was going back to regular darkness and noticing that the light was still putting out a little bit of light, which you saw glowing there for a moment, and then it finally died out. I know these are dimmable, so there's a very good possibility that has something to do with it, but that's something I didn't notice with the other units. So what I'm going to go ahead now is put the fluorescent light in. Instead of doing a screenshot, I'm actually going to turn that light on live, and you can kind of see how it increases in luminosity as it starts to warm up a little bit. Now right off the bat, I don't like these just because they're much more fragile. You know, it's the other LEDs, you don't have any kind of glass usually to worry about. Some of the newer ones or heavier ones do still use glass globes, especially the ones that have the visible filaments, but for the most part they're pretty robust. These guys are very delicate, and there's a mercury vapor inside of these, as in most fluorescent bulbs, and that becomes an issue for disposing of them, and it's a whole nother issue. And I don't like how they have to warm up. I don't like how they lose luminosity as they get older. I just never was a fan of them. I'm never really a fan of the color of light they put out either, even though, you know, you had the choice between warm and soft and cool and all these other different variations of it. I still never really liked it, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do like I said. I'm going to go ahead and turn this light back off again, and I'll get this so it's not actually swamping the camera out. And we'll see how this gains in brightness. Now I can see a visible kind of shimmer to the light itself. I'm sure the camera may or may not pick that up. Let's see, maybe I can get just a little bit of this light in here. Now as it's going, it is getting brighter. I can see the bottom of the coil here is much brighter than the top. It's going to be hard to make that out on camera, but you just have to take my word on that. So I can kind of get a gauge to when it's getting the full brightness. There are spots where it is a little hard to look at. Let's get our camera back to where I had the initial shot, and I'll move this light to the center of the room, right where we had the initial shot. And it's still getting there. It's much brighter than it was. I'd say it's about 75% brighter than it was when I first turned it on. Now, full disclosure, this bulb isn't exactly new. It's been in this fixture for a while now. This is actually why I have it on the desk. I borrowed this lamp from the living room. This is a lamp that doesn't get used very much at all. It's the spare lamp. The two main lamps we use on my wife's side of the couch and my side of the couch both have LED bulbs in it, very similar to the ones we tested out earlier. But since this was in this fixture, I decided to throw it into the mix just so we can get a comparison. That's full brightness. It seems like it's all even throughout the tube, and you guys can judge for yourself. It's not a horrible light, you know, it's just, I don't know, I'm just biased against fluorescent tubes, I guess you could say. Always have been. It's not bad. It's doable. In fact, it's getting still a little brighter. Now this is supposed to be 2700. I could turn my camera light back on here. I can't go down that low. 3300 is the lowest I can go, but we can kind of sort of match that a little bit, which is pretty neat. But anyway, that's really all I have to add. We can go ahead and turn some of these other lights back on. It does get quite bright when you have so many of these different pieces going on here, but that's kind of what I intended to be. You can still see little things like Santa's face over here, just on my camera light here alone. When I get close like this, if I adjust it, you can see how we go from cool back down to warm again. Now, warm light, you know, typically shows better against like incandescent light. You know, it's supposed to give you that real warm, nice, cozy feeling. It's good for the winter time, I guess you could say, and not that it emulates sunlight, but more it just gives you like that warm, cozy. Whereas cool white, there's a lot more blue in it. It could be a problem with you know, sleep. I know some people say computer monitors put out a lot of blue light, so therefore, you know, that blue light, it helps your, you know, makes your body produce less melatonin. Melatonin you need to help fall asleep, so on and so forth. That's a lot of problem. That's why actually I think you see a lot more cool white in office buildings and in institutional situations, whereas the warm lighting is more for your residential type stuff. So in the living rooms, I have the warm light and stuff like that. Here in the desks, my computer desk, my wife's desk, we tend to like the cool white better just because it's more task oriented, I think. You know, I think you focus more when you're in that kind of light. It's a brighter, more crisp light. But that's my opinion. I know everyone else has their opinion. And with that, I want to know what your guys' opinion is. Which one of these light colors do you find better, or do you notice nothing at all? Do you think that all the screenshots look the same? I'd like to see those kind of comments. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next video.